once this goes, it's going to go straight into our intro, and it's going to drop into my thing. All right, so we're now live on YouTube. We are live on LinkedIn. We're also live on Facebook. Got a lot of noise on your side of noisy stuff.
Yeah, I'm plugging my phone in.
Okay.
I mean, computer.
All right.
One of those things.
Yes, okay. Okay, we got 43 seconds.
Should we count them all? Are you gonna give me a
as long as you're not counting bottles of beer on the wall going down, you're okay.
Oh man, those are the only things I like to count. 2. You know, that's how they used to do it, or that's how they do it on live. They go 5, 4, 3.
All right, we're almost there. We got 16. Hi, Stephen Rudolph here, and welcome to Multiple Natures Live, where we identify your potential and align it so you can thrive. And this is our second episode, and I'm thrilled to be here. In each episode, I'm going to be addressing an individual who has a particular challenge. They might feel stuck in their lives someplace. And what I found is that in most cases, the solutions to the problem are not out there, but the solutions are in here. So when we do a deep dive and we look into our natural potential, our innate talent, which I also call tigers, I find quite often that that's where the answer lies. And so with me, I would like to welcome our guest on our episode today, Morgan Nichols, dear friend of mine in Kerhonkson, New York. Kerhonkson, New York, and most beautiful place in a very rustic space. And Morgan has worked in the television industry for more than 20 years as a performer, as a producer, and as a director, among other things. And he is currently a builder who is rebuilding his house. I've had the opportunity to see the amazing work that he's done. And I would like to welcome you to Multiple Natures Live, Morgan. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you, Stephen. It's good to be here.
Yeah. And so you have already had a Multiple Natures experience. We did a Feed Your Tigers boot camp about almost a year and a half ago. And you got a chance to take the MN test and to find out about your unique talents and even address some of the challenges. So why don't you share a little bit about your experience? What were some of the takeaways from your previous encounter with Multiple Natures?
Some of the takeaways. So my previous encounters with multiple natures were highly positive. There were some things that I knew about myself, creative, physical. There were other things that I engaged in regularly that I had no idea. Um, you know, Not that I didn't have any idea that they weren't a strength, but I had no idea that they were as low. Uh, my ability for them was as low as it actually is. And it was really enlightening to understand that I spend a lot of my time engaged in things that are not my tigers and not engaged in things that are my passions or as you would call them, my tigers. And that is one of the things that is a direct reason for some of the unhappiness that I feel on a regular basis. And how to engage those larger tigers on a regular basis, even if it's just small. I'm sitting in my kitchen. I have a basketball hoop outside, so even if it's just something like playing basketball for 15 minutes a day, stealing 15 minutes a day to do something, or it was really enlightening to find that there are ways that I can engage the things that I care about and how much it does lift my emotional state if I do it on a regular basis.
All right. And as we know, working with your tigers is it's not a one-time deal. It's not that you figure them out and then you put yourself into autopilot and then after that you don't need to think about it. What I find is that for me, it's something that I need to constantly work on. And even being the creator of Multiple Natures, I also get out of alignment. And as you're expressing, I sometimes fail to feed certain tigers and I overfeed others. And I know the signs. I know the signs and maybe you can tell us what are your signs that you know when your tigers are being misfed and some of the things that you've experienced recently.
No, absolutely. I mean, you could, if you come and spend a day in my life as a fly on the wall, you'd be able to say, okay, so you just said that you learned all this stuff about how to feed your tigers, but you're not in alignment at all. You're not feeding any of them. And some of the signs are, for me, I get irritable, I get depressed, I get um, impatient with my children, impatient with my partner. Um, I start to, think everything is the end of the world. And then, even worse than that, it steamrolls. It starts to snowball into this place where I am right now, where I actually don't feed really any of my tigers, except probably a gross physical tiger. And that's only because, as you said before, I'm working as a builder. So, you know, I can't swing a hammer with my mind. I kind of have to do that with my hands and my arms. So that's
All right, so
physical.
that's why we're back today. That's why we're back is that you've had this experience before where you've learned something about your potential, about these talents and abilities, and you had an opportunity to to find ways to feed those tigers and to address them. And as I say, it's something that if I don't do it regularly and I don't keep thinking about it, then I can fall back into those same places. And for me, my triggers are, or like the symptoms I know when my tigers aren't being fed. I'm definitely overeating. I'm definitely going to get a sugar hit. I will probably have an extra cup of coffee or two that I don't need. And so I can tell right away and I say to myself, what's up, man? Like, why are you going for that? And then that's sort of my signs that something's out of alignment. Yeah. What do you got?
That's a good point. I'm it's you just I'm a closet fat kid. Not to insult anybody, but I have in my cabinet right now a bunch of brownies and some little pecan tarts that I bought the other day, and I get embarrassed when I eat a lot of sugar and bad things, so I hide them in the lowest cabinet in hopes that nobody will find them, and then I closet eat at night in secret. And then when I go upstairs, and this is definitely when my tigers are out of alignment, when I go upstairs and my partner says, what are you doing? I say, I'm not doing anything, because in reality, I just had 3 brownies. I don't want anybody to know that.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Yep.
I'm with you.
And that's important because my experience is everybody has a place where they hide it. Everybody's got that. When they're out of alignment, for some people it might be sugar. Other people it might be alcohol, or it might be some kind of a stimulant. For some people it can also be things like diversion, hours of surfing something mindless or endless, and it can even be things like, believe it or not, playing politics, gossiping, where you feel really awful about your own life, and so it's kind of, you get a kick, you get a little feel good thing when you start putting somebody else down or something like that. So different people hide it in different places, and so what we're here to do is to find ways to deal with it more powerfully, to deal with it more constructively, so it's not a matter of, you don't have to cover it up. And while I say that, look, I'm not saying it's you shouldn't eat brownies, or you shouldn't drink coffee, or you shouldn't do any of that stuff, because that would be awful. But using it as a tactic in order to make myself feel better, and to cover up things, is not sustainable in the long run. And there are certainly ways of engaging my tigers more effectively, so I get things done and I create a life that's constructive with my energy. And so that's what this is about. So, Morgan, tell us, what's the challenge right now? How would you, how would you define it in a nutshell, in a sentence or two?
I am currently being, well, I don't, I'm currently forced to spend too much time feeding my administrative and my entrepreneurial tigers. For anyone who doesn't know, there's an entire list of
Yeah, we got it right
things.
there, so people can refer to it. So you're referring to the administrative you feel is a bit overworked, the tigers being
Yep.
overfed, and the entrepreneurial, that business. So the administrative is organizing, delegating. Entrepreneurial is dealing with, could be with finance or managing projects and things like that from a resource management perspective. Okay, so those are a bit overfed, and the other aspect you were sharing.
And I'm not feeding, like I said, I'm feeding gross bodily, but I'm not feeding it in a way that is athletic or an adventurous way that is something more in line with what I would want to be doing. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
absolutely not feeding my entertaining or my creative, which are really my biggest tigers. Because I just, again, I always fall into this place. I think this was the place I was last time we did the test and the boot camp. Is I just don't feel like I have the time. I'm overwhelmed. I
Right,
go
right,
7 days a week, 28 hours a day.
yeah.
And the thing that falls to the wayside, which is currently happening, is me, my biggest tigers, the
Okay.
things that give me some peace.
So let's do one thing. You did the multiple natures test, as I said, a year and a half ago, and you're speaking about it also with a degree of knowledge. So, in case anybody's joining us and you've not experienced multiple natures before, hearing some of these terms might sound new to you. But one of the things that I also see people express is that once you know what the tigers are, and there are 19 of them, um, it's not too hard to know what they are and to remember them, especially the ones that give you the most trouble, because it's usually only around 4 or 5 of those. So what we're going to do is let's jump into your test results so we can actually see what it was that when you first found out about your tigers, what they
Yeah,
were, right?
sure.
And so we can do that right here. So these are two sets of abilities. I had flashed you this. These are 19 tigers right here. On the left, you see intelligencies. On the right, you see nature. So intelligencies, this is Howard Gardner's model. Talk about your abilities, so things you can do with your body, as you were talking about, or with your dexterity, your interpersonal abilities and whatnot. And then on the right side, you see natures, which deal with like a protective or educative. You were talking about your administrative and also
Yeah.
your entrepreneurial and creative. So let's look at them as it pertains to you. Let's look at it as it pertains to you. And what we see right off the bat is there's your gross bodily. So this is your athletic ability. And you scored
Yeah.
yourself as a 9.5 out of 10 there. So that seems to be one of your biggest tigers. And I know you've had a background in sports. You were an amazing football player when you were in high school, and you share with me a lot of your success stories around that. And take a look at that, right? There's your intrapersonal. That's your deep level thinking, your self analysis. And you and I have had long talks and long chats where we've explored the nature of life and where we are in that and everything in between. So I know that about you, that you're a deep thinker. And at the same time, you're highly interpersonal. You love to be with people. And this is an interesting thing that some people think that this is like introversion and extroversion, that if you're a deep thinker and you're reflective, it means that you're introverted. And if you're interpersonal, it means that, you're just extroverted. But in your case, interestingly, we can see here how you are both at the same time. You're somebody who
Yeah.
loves to interact with people, and at the same time, you're also a deep thinker. So that's it like these are some of the key ones that come out for you on your your intelligencies. And let's take a look
Right.
here. Look at that creative tiger, massive, at and there's the entertaining. So you're both someone. These are like creative tiger and an entertaining tiger, right? Teamed up
And
together. That's
I
huge.
love it. I actually got to do for the first time since the pandemic. I was just in a film a couple months ago, And I'll tell you, for the 3 weeks that it shot, I was the happiest man alive. I mean, I couldn't feel better, and I was still able to work, and I was still able to do all the things that I needed to do.
You mean
But
from the build from the
I,
you mean from the building perspective?
yeah, from the building perspective. So I'm working on my personal home. I mean, that's why you see sheetrock on these walls and plaster and all that wonderful stuff. Actually, I put this window in myself. Um,
I'm amazed. I
and
was at your house just to see you doing all of that, but I was just blown away that you took like some machine, it's some crane, you wrecked it. I saw the video, and like you've been building and putting all of that. So I'm amazed by that. But come back to Morgan. Come back to telling
so,
me. You said that when you're creative and entertaining, were engaged while you were doing this. Tell me about how you felt there.
so at that point in time, I was still doing all of this stuff and working a job where I built someone else's house. Um, but I was going and I was working on this film, which is the first time I'd been able to engage that in almost 3 years. And I felt on top of the world. I mean, it didn't matter that I could be broke, I could be homeless, I could be, destitute and without water, but I was happy. I was doing what everything felt right. Like even in the worst situation, everything felt right. It felt like I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And yeah, no, I mean that's why I spent 20 years in the industry. It's the thing I am most passionate about,
Mm.
and to be able to be doing it again, really, I felt a sense of completion within myself. Um, and then that sort of fell off. Life got in the way, and as I said, I started to have to take over managing a business and learning how to bring that business more money and providing, which I mean, I'm working a full time job at the moment, and I am not. I'm an actor, so what that means is actors work as moving men. I've been a moving man. I've been a trainer. I've been a busboy. I've cleaned out bars. I've waited tables. I've bartended. You don't. I've never had a full time job in my life.
So interestingly, so here's what I hear you saying that, and I know many actors, and as you rightly said, there's a small number who are employed full time just with their acting work, and so therefore
Right.
you need to supplement your life with activities that are going to give you a regular income so you can then go off and do that. But what I really want to hear from you just a little bit more when you talk about how you feel when you're entertaining and creative are on. What is that like? You said you a sense of completion. Just go there for a little bit more. Like when you're in that space where you're on stage or you're in front of the camera and you're doing your thing. Like what is the experience? Tell me a bit more about it. How do I know? Like, because people ask me, how do I know if it's a big tiger or not? Like some people who are going through, they do the test and they're sort of feeling their way through to understand where their talents lie. And they say, okay, like, how do I know? Because sometimes some people say, hey, I want to be in film or I want to, but they don't necessarily feel what you're feeling while they're going through that experience. So, what is it that you're experiencing in those moments?
I guess there's a sense of satisfaction. Nothing else is more important. Um, it consumes my mind. I mean, It's all I think about. It's all I want to think about. And I have two children. I have a wife. I have responsibilities, but it's the thing that is, and that may sound selfish, but it's the thing that's in the forefront. It's the thing that I wake up in the morning thinking about. I go to sleep at night thinking about. I stay up late thinking about it. I'm engaged in it. I do it. I play with it. Um, I'm comfortable in it. It makes I feel, how do I put it so that because everyone will feel different, obviously, but I feel at home. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just
It's a nice way to put it.
I'm sitting here in my home that I'm building, and when you're at home, you're comfortable. You
Yes.
kick your feet up, You can sit there. And I have pants on right now, but on Zoom, a lot of times people will not wear any pants, from what I understand. But I do have pants on. But you can sit in your own home in your underwear and read your kick your feet up. You're in your element,
In
and
your element. That's a nice way to put it. And that's really what I'm looking for, because for me, being in my element is very much even what I'm doing right now. Being connected to intrapersonal, talking about deep life things. Connecting with somebody, and then being in a bit of an educative space as well, and being a little entertaining. So I feel very much even at home in this as well, and I want that for other people, Morgan. It's like I know that people can find that, but not everybody knows really where they are at home, or they know where being at home is, but they find it hard to get to that place. That's where they want to be more. They want to expand that in their lives, but they just can't really figure out how to increase it. So let's come back. I want to come back to your graph for a second, and we can see here that this creative and entertaining is something that gets satisfied. That gets satisfied when when you're doing acting related work. So the first question is, how could you be increasing that more? This is a question. How could you be doing something? I'm sure that much of this might be dependent on your having certain gigs, but is there a way that you could do something to feed those tigers a bit more? Let's just start with that entertaining and creative. Is there a way that you could be doing that a little bit more regularly?
I mean, of course there is. I could, I could right now. I guess part of the problem is I'm not making it a priority, right? Because everything else seems so much more of a priority that it's not. And for me personally, when I let something go, I let myself go. So I could be writing small skits. I have a phone, right? I could be filming them on my phone and putting them on YouTube, because if it's not about making $1 million, which I guess that's how I know that, that's, you asked a moment ago, how do I know it's my thing? I guess now that I'm older, when I was younger, it was all about making $1 million, making $1 million. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be, I'm a Al Pacino. I'm going to be the next. And it's not about that anymore. It's about, I love doing it, and so I could just film it on my phone, put it on YouTube, and nobody can see it. But I'm in the act of doing it. So
Nice.
there are things that I could do to feed that. I have other, like you, I have other humans in my life that, have entertaining qualities to them, and they want to do things. So I could enroll one of them, a man we both know, a man named Michael, who, we see like once a week on a Saturday. I could have him work on something sketchy with me, and he's spoken about it. He speaks about it all the time.
Mm.
I could have him do something like sketch comedy wise and just film it on my phone. I mean, I have an entire production studio of film equipment at my disposal that I could be using. And right now it's a major investment that I used to use when I was making productions regularly, and I'm not using
Yeah.
it all. So
So here's something
not
interesting.
like
Something interesting about what you're saying that I've experienced is that it's something like dental hygiene or exercise or your diet. If I, sometimes, especially with exercise, that's an example I think everybody understands, which is like, I'm busy with this and I'm busy with, I don't have time for exercise. There are priorities right now and I just can't do it. And there's somebody who I know who's also, who really is in a bad situation. She has bipolar and is in a state of depression and is quite busy trying to get enough work to make ends meet, and who says something that's, I don't have time. I've got to work and I've got to make money. I don't have time for exercise. And what I also find is that I've seen this with her, and we had a discussion, when she does cut out the time for it, It's not that working more hours makes anybody any more efficient. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The more you do it, the less efficient you get. So therefore, like that sharpening the axe, analogy, the woodsman in a competition is like chopping and chopping and chopping, and there are other people there. One stops to sharpen his axe, and then others think that he's crazy because he's not chopping, and then he comes back and with a couple of chops he beats everybody else, right? So sometimes it's important to sharpen the axe, and you just might find that doing that a couple of times a week, for a half hour or an hour might give you energy that you didn't have otherwise to go about being successful. So that's something that you could take away with you, which is to find a way a couple of times a week to do something creative using that creative and entertaining. So that's a way of feeding tigers. Let's also look at the other side, which is you said that you've got administrative, and it's over here, and entrepreneurial, which we can see are I'll roll that up a little bit on the lower side, right? And they're overfed. So these are smaller tigers. They're smaller tigers that are getting a big workout right now. So just to talk about that for just a moment.
Okay. Well, so as we've spoken about a moment ago, I'm working as a builder. Now, this is something I'm relatively new to. I've probably been building, in about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, I'll probably be classified as a journeyman. 2 years as a carpenter and you become a journeyman. But the individual that I'm working with is, for lack of a better term, he's an artist, and I mean it in the most stereotypically horrible way. He's extremely talented, but he's got no ability for business whatsoever. So he has pretty much tanked us in terms of finances, to the point where I have had to take over the job that we're working and be the project manager, with a limited skill set, mind you. But I'm a quick learner, so a limited skill set doesn't really matter. But I've ended up having to take over the job and schedule us, speak to the client, create a set of accountability that allows us to be paid on a regular basis by the client, because the finances and the estimates for the job were being completely mismanaged, and it was causing us to basically be working for free. These are things I'm very capable of.
Right.
I can run a job. I'm smart enough. I can figure out how to talk to somebody and convince them that A will happen and B will happen. Therefore, C, which is we get paid this amount of money, needs to happen on a regular basis. I'm extremely capable of doing that, but it's not something that I am emotionally or energetically
Yeah.
drawn.
And that's a great point. Even when I asked you the question, you started the question with, and you almost ended it with the, that sigh, which is really quite different. If I were to say, when I said to you something about, about acting, and then suddenly you lit up and you were energetic and you were at home and you were sort of relaxed. And then when we come to this aspect, which is more of the running of the project, as you've said, it's something that you can do. Everybody has some amount of administrative tiger or entrepreneurial, so it's there, except that the energy that you need to expend for that type of activity is much more than the energy that you would need to expend for doing something creative and entertaining. And by the same token, there are some people out there, if I told them they had to go in front of a camera or they had to go on stage and say something, they would be like, I've got to do this talk next week and I'm going to have to, and they would, because their tigers are different than yours, and they might be the
Right.
opposite, or, and for them entertaining and creative might be on the lower side. And so for them, they would have to prepare for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 6 weeks. I was somebody who did a TED talk. I was listening to an interview. They were practicing almost nonstop for like 6 to 8 weeks, and so it doesn't come as naturally, right? So the question here is that it's obviously something that you didn't have a choice, that you have to do. And this is important to recognize, because sometimes people feel as though they have all the choices at their fingertips. Like, okay, yeah, I can do this type of work when I want to, and I could do that type. There's this idealistic way of looking at it. Quite often, what happens is life shows up and says, this is going to be dumped on your plate. And you know, maybe a colleague suddenly gets ill or is fired, and now suddenly you have to take on their set of tasks or a portion of them, and it might not be as per your set of tigers. So life shows up, and we have to deal with it. So in your case, if we take a look at that administrative and it's something that you've had to take on somewhat willingly, because you've got that bodily. If we take a look up there, that bodily is certainly there. So that gives you the capacity to be able to hammer and to nail and to climb up on beams and do that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
And that creative is also there, right? I saw you being creative around the development of your place, so maybe some of it, but certainly this administrative aspect is going to take over. Let's come to a solution. So if we know that you might be getting a little bit overwhelmed with some of the project management side of things, some of the resources, and maybe some of that organizing, how might you go forward, keeping this in mind, for getting some support for those tigers? How could you do that?
Well, I mean, you just talking about you, right? You're really good at
I'm talking about you. I
creating.
mean, for you, for your
I,
situation. Yeah.
I am. But I'm talking about you, me, you for me, for you. So you're really good at creating. You like the you for me, for
I
you.
like that.
You're really good at creating like a standard of document, right?
Mhm.
So what I could do, something I could do is ask you to help me or ask someone to help me create like I have to put in these reports every week, these schedules and daily reports every week to the client so that he knows we're on task. Um, it's not a heavy lift. It doesn't, I'm sure people watching this will be like, okay, so what? For me, it's slightly a heavy lift. It takes a couple hours to create the document. Even though I have the template that I have created, it takes me a little while to get myself around it. So I could ask you, sort of like Coda style, or somebody in my life, sort of, you work with this thing called Coda. I don't know if
Yeah,
I want
Coda
to
is
say
it's
Coda.
a software a tool like Notion or like Google Docs that enables you to organize your information.
I figured now we might owe them like $600,000 or something like that because I said their name. But no,
No,
but
they'd be happy. I think they should be paying you for the plug.
Coda. So I could ask you to help me to create some sort of living document as such that I can refer back to every week, so that the inputting of things is much easier, and there's not having to reinvent the wheel all the time. Because I think at this point what I'm doing is I partially have a template, but I'm partially reinventing the wheel. So there's easier ways to go about doing what I need to do by asking humans who
Absolutely.
uh, have a stronger understanding of what it is that I'm trying to do, or a larger tiger, or know how to use the tiger, even if it's not a larger tiger, know how to engage with the tiger.
I like this idea of recruiting other people, and I also want to highlight something that you said, which I don't want it to slip by, which is when I have a tiger that's small, and I have to get something done that utilizes that tiger. It's like the inertia is so hard to overcome. For instance, I might have because my administrator is on the lower side too. Like I had some papers that I needed to put into folders, like filing them, and I had the folders. I went out and I bought them, and I had them. They were sitting on my desk for months, and I just kept avoiding it. And finally, I got. This might sound really silly. I recruited my daughter, who's 11 and who's highly administrative. She's really organized. I said, all right. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna pay $5 and I want you to come here and help me get organized. So she said, okay. And she came and she actually just held the space. She sort of stood there. And the work was done in an hour. And it might sound ridiculously stupid, but just the fact that I got somebody whose tiger was massive to be able to do that and to come and to be there was you might hear some banging on the door. That's my 2-year-old, my 2.5-year-old. I don't know if you can hear her outside. She's
Horrible, by the way.
she's ready to play with Daddy, who's upstairs in the office. And now she can walk up the stairs by herself, which is simultaneously scary as well as heartening because I know she's gaining some of her independence. So she just escaped it. It sounds like I hear my wife chasing her outside. But our older one helped me to get organized this way, and I was almost embarrassed afterwards. I have to say, like I said to myself, like, you had to like get an 11-year-old to like sort of come and to be there, and it was so easy to do. Why couldn't you get it done? And then just as you said before, it was just like getting myself into doing it was the thing that was so hard. And so I love the idea of recruiting people, whether they're family members or whether they're colleagues or whether they're professional people. Sometimes when stuff has to get done, just getting somebody there and getting the wheels rolling can be really powerful, a really powerful way. So maybe we can sort of conclude looking at the takeaways that you have. One is the positive side, I guess you can say, or the feeding of the tigers, and the other is getting some support for tigers that are not as big. Let's hear it in your words. Going forward, what did you gain in our work? Sometimes we say, as a result of being here today, what I've learned about myself or what I've learned about my tigers is. So model the way. What did you get out of our session today?
What I have learned about myself, or what I've learned about my tigers is, if I don't live by this narrative that I've created, that there's not enough time, that I am more than capable of feeding my tigers and finding ways to lessen the lift that it is for me to have to engage in my lesser tigers. So what I mean by that is there's at least 15 minutes a day where I can do something, even if that's some creative writing, or 15 minutes every other day. I won't say a day. That seems like a big 0 to 120. I mean, I'm not even talking 0 to 60. But there's a way that I can feed a creative tiger each week, even if that's just, writing in a writing program, which I have on my computer. And there's also ways around having to run this business, which is asking for help, and also asking for help, I guess, around changing the context that I have around running this business, right? Which is, God damn it, this person, excuse my language, this person can't do this, I have to do this. But the reality is I'm, I like you said, I have no choice, but I'm also, good things are coming from it. I'm providing for my family, which is low, but I've found a way to do it. I'm also working my gross bodily, and I'm getting to, I guess if I'm changing my context, I guess there's some sort of adventure, right? I want to talk about adventure, but there's some sort of adventure in doing something new. I've never done this before. So I'd say a little perspective shift would help to lessen the heavy lift on how hard it is to feed the tiger, and ask for help. Make small amount of time to feed the big tigers. Ask for help with the small ones.
Awesome.
And then call you when I forget that that's what I should be doing.
I'm always here for you any time of the day. You push the button and you've got me online to help you feed your tigers. And with that, it brings us to the end of our episode for today. And I want to thank you, Morgan, for being with us and for sharing your challenges and for being inspirational. And I would love to invite anybody who would like to feed their tigers and to find out ways of being more balanced and aligning your potential, to get in touch. And you can do that by clicking on the link below here. You can take the multiple natures test, the MN test, and find out how you can align that potential and you can find joy and satisfaction and to become more aligned in your life. And with that, I will thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite channel. You'll find us on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and also on Facebook. And with that, I say, feed your tigers before they eat you.